Chapter 6. Emergency Contact. The apartment had a bay window 3 steps down from the sidewalk, and a smell I have never encountered anywhere else: old radiator, dust, and the lemon oil the landlady used on the banister, and under that faintly, the roti shop 2 doors down. I moved in on the 15th of August with 4 boxes and a lamp. Camille supervised. That is the correct word. She carried nothing up and everything and stood in the middle of the front room with her hands on her hips, announcing that the ceilings were showing off. Cam, help me with the... I'm pregnant. You found out Tuesday. I found out Tuesday that there's 2, she said, which is double. So I'm double pregnant, so I'm not lifting a lamp. Twins. Terrence had cried in the parking lot of the sonogram place, she said, real crying, the ugly kind, and bought a stuffed elephant on the way home. 1 elephant for 2 babies. She had to sit down on my unassembled bed frame to finish telling it. Senior year started 3 weeks later, and I told nobody. 10 weeks along and not showing under a cardigan. I registered for a full load. I took the Wednesday seminar 4:10 to 6:50, which met in a windowless room on the 3rd floor of Hollis, and which I chose specifically because it was the only section Dr. Feld taught herself. I sat in that seminar every Wednesday from September to December with a secret in my lap, taking notes on attachment theory in handwriting that got smaller as the semester went on. He did not move in. Not officially, not with a key ceremony, not with a conversation. He simply began being there. 3 nights a week, then 5. His razor appeared on the shelf. A pair of boots by the radiator, then 2 pairs. He ate standing up at the counter like a man expecting to leave, and I made fun of him for it. And eventually I started doing it too. Neither of us could cook. This was a genuine crisis. I could make rice, badly. He could make eggs and nothing else. For 6 weeks, 2 adult human beings ate eggs and rice and takeout from the roti shop like it was a diet somebody had prescribed. We have to learn something. Why? Because a child is coming and neither of us can feed it. It drinks milk for a year, he said. That's a year to learn a chicken. He fixed the lock on the bathroom door in September without me asking. Took him 9 minutes. He never mentioned it again. That was how he said things. Other men wrote it down. Malachi replaced a hinge. The bay window had a draft, and one day it didn't. The bulb in the vestibule had been out since I moved in, and one day it wasn't. I never once saw him do any of it. I'd just come home, and the apartment would be slightly more habitable than I left it, like living with a considerate ghost. The first ultrasound was the 23rd of September. He sat in the little chair with his knees too high and did not say one word for the entire appointment. On the screen, it looked like a smear of static with a flicker in the middle. Dr. Adeyemi turned up the sound, and there it was. That fast, wet, galloping noise that does not sound like a heartbeat at all. It sounds like a train. He put his hand flat on the paper, covering the exam table next to my hip, and left it there. In the car afterward, he said, "That's a girl. They can't tell yet. That's a girl." You are aware that saying it confidently does not affect the outcome. "We'll see," he said, and pulled into traffic. And he was right, and he never let me forget it. Now the other thing. The thing that sat in that apartment with us the whole time. There was no mail with his name on it. Not one piece, not ever. The lease was mine. Gas, electric, phone, mine. He gave me an envelope on the 1st of every month, always cash, always more than the number I'd told him. And I put it in a coffee tin in the cabinet above the stove because I did not know what else to do with it. In October, I tried to put 4,000 of it in the bank at once, and the teller, a nice woman, maybe 50, not accusing me of anything, asked pleasantly what the deposit was from. I heard myself say, "a gift." I heard how it sounded. I took 2,000 back out and left with my face burning. I never told him about that. I started depositing 800 at a time at different branches, and I never once asked myself in writing why I knew to do that. He didn't sleep facing the window. There was a canvas bag on the floor of the closet that I never opened and never moved. Bishop had a key and used it exactly once to leave a car seat in the front room while we were out still in the box, the expensive kind. In November, I asked him to put his name on something. Any of it. The lease, the utility, the father's section on Dr. Adeyemi's intake form. The form had been on my counter for 2 months with that section blank. Put your name down. No. Malachi, on a form that sits in a file in an office, he said, with my name and your address and a date. It's a doctor. It's paper, he said. Paper goes places. 2 days later, I filled out the fieldwork placement packet for my thesis. The college requires one. Everybody in the department does it. 4 pages of releases and immunization dates. Page 3, halfway down, emergency contact. Name, relationship. I sat in a carrel in the library basement with a pen in my hand for a long time. Then I wrote my mother's name and mother and turned the page. And I understood fully, for the first time, exactly what I was. I was not his wife. My name was not on anything he owned because he didn't own anything. Not in a way any piece of paper would admit. If he vanished on a Tuesday, I could not have called a hospital and been told a thing. If he died, I would have found out by rumor. And there was a child coming in March whose father would be on every document that would ever exist about her, a blank space. He was building me a life out of cash and locks and boilers, and not 1 inch of it had my name on it in a way anybody would have to honor. Chapter 7. The Wednesday seminar. There were 9 of us in that room, and I knew 8 of them by the 2nd week. The 9th was a sophomore, which was unusual. It was a 400-level seminar, and you needed Feld's signature to be in it at all. He came in 4 minutes late on the first Wednesday of October, sat in the chair nearest the door, and did not take his jacket off for the entire 2 hours and 40 minutes. 19 years old, enormous sneakers, a notebook with nothing in it. Andre, he said when Dr. Feld went around the room. At the break, I was at the vending machine on 3, and he came and stood next to me and said, "You're Naima Carter." Not a question. Have we? No, he said. And then, fast looking at the vending machine and not at me, "I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I know your name and you don't know mine, and that's a weird way to start. So I'd rather just say it than have you figure it out later and think I was being slick." Okay. Andre Ellery. I did not know the name. That is the honest truth, and it is the only reason the next 6 weeks happened. I had heard Cyprus, and I had heard Farragut, and I had never once in my life heard anybody in that world say a surname out loud. So I said, "Nice to meet you, Andre," and bought a bag of pretzels, and we went back into the seminar. I mentioned it to Malachi on Friday. In the car, in passing, the way you mention a thing that is not a thing. "There's a sophomore in my seminar named Andre Ellery." He went still. Not tense. Still, the laundromat stillness, the hallway stillness, both hands on the wheel of a car that was moving this time. "Malachi, don't talk to him. He's in my seminar. We have a group presentation in November." "Naima." A long breath. "Don't talk to him." "Then tell me why." And he didn't. 11 blocks of not telling me why. So I talked to him. Of course I did. I have spent my whole life being handed a wall and deciding to take notes on it. And Andre Ellery was... I want to be fair to him, because almost nobody in this story has been Andre Ellery, was a good kid. 19 and out of his depth in his senior seminar, and painfully aware of it. He worked harder than anybody in that room. He asked questions he'd clearly rehearsed. He carried my bag up to the 3rd floor twice without making a thing of it in a semester when I was starting to show and had told nobody on that campus. He called me Miss Carter for 3 weeks until I made him stop. The 11th of November, the seminar topic was complicated grief. Feld ran that session the way she ran everything, which is to say she asked one question and then let a room full of 20-year-olds sit in the silence until somebody could not stand it anymore. Andre could not stand it. My cousin got killed last December, he said. The room did what rooms do. Somebody said, "Oh my God." Somebody said, "I'm so sorry." Feld said nothing at all, which was the correct thing and the hardest one. Nobody got arrested, Andre said. He was looking at the table. That's the part. My aunt calls the detective every couple weeks and they real nice to her on the phone, and then nothing happens. And she keeps his phone on. Like the account, she still pays it, so his voicemail still... He stopped. He put his hand over his mouth for a second and then took it away. Marcus, he said. His name was Marcus Dill. I was 14 weeks pregnant, sitting 4 feet from him in a windowless room on the 3rd floor of the building I loved most in the world. And I heard 2 flat sounds through cinder block. I do not remember the rest of that seminar. I have tried. I remember that I did not get up, and I did not make a sound, and that Dr. Feld looked at me once across the table for slightly too long. I remember being aware of my own face the entire time, the way you are aware of holding something breakable. Afterward, Andre said, "Sorry, that was a lot," and I said something. I have no idea what. He thanked me for listening and went down the stairs 2 at a time like a 19-year-old. It was 6:50 at night in November, so it was already dark. The visitor lot behind Hollis Hall has 11 spaces and 1 light. I had the little silver car by then, the automatic, easy to park. There was a man standing beside it. Late 30s good coat, hands folded in front of him, completely at ease, a man waiting for a bus in a place with no bus. He had been standing there long enough to have decided how to stand. I stopped about 15 feet away. "Miss Carter," he said, and smiled, and it was a real smile. That's the thing. It warm. "Deshaun Ellery, my brother's in your class. He says you're the smartest one in there, and he ain't wrong. I looked you up." "You looked me up." "Honorable mention," he said. "Undergraduate Research Prize May. It's on the school website. Y'all put everything on the internet now." He shook his head, amused, like a man discussing the weather. My mother would have framed that. I did not move. He did not move toward me. That is the part I could never explain to anybody afterwards. He never took one step in my direction the entire time. Then he reached over without hurrying and opened my car door. Held it. Waited. "Long walk out here at night," Deshaun Ellery said. "They should fix that light." I got in. I want to be honest. I got in and I said thank you because 21 years of being raised right does not switch off because your heart is going. He shut my door for me and stepped back onto the curb. Then he leaned down just slightly and spoke through the glass in a completely pleasant voice. "Tell Saint I said the campus is real nice." I drove to East 21st Street. He was there. The kitchen light was on, and he had eggs going standing up at the counter. And I said hello, and I put my bag down, and I did not tell him. That was the first thing I ever kept from him. It was not the lost. Chapter 8. 31 weeks. Camille called me at 4 in the afternoon on the 2nd of December and said in a completely normal voice, "I think I peed on myself in the Rite Aid." "Cam, Naima, I'm serious. I'm standing in the shampoo aisle." "Camille, how many weeks are you?" 31, she said, and her voice changed on the second syllable, and that is the exact moment my whole body went cold. Bishop drove. I called him because there was nobody else call, and he was outside my building in 9 minutes and did not ask one question the whole way to the Rite Aid on Flatbush, where my cousin was sitting on an overturned milk crate a stock boy had brought her, holding a bag of shampoo she had paid for because she did not want to leave without paying for it. "I bought this," she told me like a defense. "I know, baby. Terrence has the 4 to midnight. Here is what nobody puts in the movies. It took 11 hours, and it was mostly waiting. That is the first lie the movies tell, that it's fast. It is not fast. It is a hallway. It is a room with a curtain and a machine that beeps, and 2 nurses who are extremely kind and extremely busy, and a doctor you see for 4 minutes an hour. They tried to stop it. That's what those first hours were, a drug to slow the contractions, a drug to help the baby's lungs, and Camille flat on her side in a bed that was too small, shaking, because one of the medications makes you shake, and nobody had told her that, and she kept apologizing for the shaking. I'm sorry, I can't stop my legs." "You don't have to be sorry." I'm being dramatic. "Camille." I had both her hands. "You are not being dramatic. The second lie is that it's beautiful. It is not beautiful. It is a body doing something violent to itself on purpose, and the sounds are not the sounds you have heard on television. There is no music. There is fluorescent light and plastic and paperwork, and at one point a woman came in with a clipboard to ask about insurance while my cousin was crying. At 2 in the morning, the numbers on one of the monitors did something the nurse did not like. She didn't say anything alarming. That was worse. She got very calm and very fast, and then there were 4 people in the room, and then 6, and somebody was unlocking the wheels of the bed with her foot, and a doctor was talking to Camille in short sentences with a hand on her shoulder, and the word was now. "Naima." "I'm right here." "Don't let them." She grabbed for my wrist and caught 2 of my fingers instead. "Naima." I didn't pick the names yet. And then they took her through a set of double doors I was not allowed to go through, and the doors swung twice and stopped. And I was standing in a corridor at 2:15 in the morning, 23 weeks pregnant, holding a plastic bag with my cousin's coat and a bottle of shampoo in it. I want to tell you what I did in that corridor, because it is the least dignified thing in this entire story. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor of a hospital hallway with both hands flat on my own stomach, and I begged, out loud, not to God particularly, to the situation. I said no about 40 times to nobody. A janitor came past with a mop and looked at me and did not say anything, and came back 4 minutes later with a cup of water, and I have never forgotten him, and I never got his name. Bishop was in the waiting area the entire time, 11 hours. He never came down the hall, never called anybody, just sat in a molded chair with his forearms on his knees like a man at a bus station, and every time I came out, he stood up. Micah was 3 pounds 11 ounces. Malik was 3 pounds 4. They were fine. I need to say that immediately, because when I tell this out loud, people's faces do a thing, and I have to stop and say it. They were fine. 5.5 weeks in the NICU with tubes taped to their cheeks and little knit hats somebody's church group had made, and they came home in January, and they are enormous now, and they are fine. But at 4 in the morning on the 3rd of December, nobody knew that. I saw Camille at 7. She was gray. There is no other word. She'd had surgery, and her lips were cracked, and the first thing she said to me, with no strength in her voice at all, was, "Did he come?" "Not yet." "Okay," she said. Terrence came at 1 in the afternoon. His shift had ended at midnight. He had 13 hours he could not account for, and did not try very hard to account for them, and he cried at the NICU window, real crying. the ugly kind. And I stood behind him and watched him cry and felt nothing at all. Camille never asked him where he'd been. Not that day, not ever. She told me later that she already knew if she asked, he would tell her, and then she would have to do something about it. I missed the last Wednesday seminar of the semester. I emailed Dr. Feld from the hospital at 6 in the morning, one line, and she wrote back in 4 minutes at 6 in the morning, because of course she was awake. Family emergency accepted. Presentation moves to the 16th. Eat something. MF. I went home at 4 in the afternoon, slept 2 hours, and woke up with my heart going. Malachi was sitting on the end of the bed with his boots still on. They good. They're small. Small's all right, he said. My cousin was small. And I sat up and said the thing I had been carrying since those doors swung shut. And my voice came out wrong. I don't want to do that alone. He was quiet for a second. You won't, he said. He believed it when he said it. I have never once doubted that. He had 7 days left. Chapter 9. Where you stand. I have to go backward before I can go forward, because otherwise the man in the waiting room doesn't make sense. Tasha Reyes was my roommate junior year, and the only person alive who could get me to leave an apartment after 10 o'clock. Nursing badly and joyfully. She talked through movies. She had a laugh that got us asked to leave a diner on Church Avenue once, and she considered that the crowning achievement of her life. When I moved to East 21st in August, she carried 3 of my 4 boxes and then made me swear on my own degree that I would not become one of those women who disappears. Naima, say it. I'm not going to disappear. Say the whole thing. I am not going to become a woman who disappears into a man with a car. She made me say it twice. On the 19th of September, she was standing outside a restaurant on Nostrand Avenue at 11 at night, waiting on a takeout order with 2 girls from her cohort. A car came down Nostrand. There was noise. It kept going. Nobody in that group had anything to do with anything. 3 nursing students waiting on curry chicken. The girl beside her was not touched. The girl behind her was not touched. Tasha was hit once high on the left side of her back and went down on a sidewalk outside a restaurant where the owner knew her by name because she ordered there every Saturday. They put her in a medically induced coma at Kings County that night to let the swelling come down. She stayed in it for 6 weeks. I found out at 1 in the morning from her mother, who called me because I was still in Tasha's phone as roomie. I was 10 weeks pregnant and had been asleep for 2 hours. And I remember standing in my kitchen in the dark trying to write a room number on my own hand with a pen that wouldn't work. Bishop was outside at 1:40. I had not called him. I need you to understand what that meant and what it did to me at the same time, because both were true at once and they have never resolved. For 6 weeks, that man drove me to Kings County almost every night. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock whenever I could stand up. He waited in the lot with the engine off. He brought coffee I didn't drink and once a folding chair for Tasha's mother, which he produced from the trunk like a magician and which that woman used every night for a month and a half. When I cried in his car, he looked straight ahead and let me and never said one word about it afterward. And he was outside my building 40 minutes after a phone call I never made. I asked Malachi one time. Once. Directly, no framework, no softening, standing in the front room with my coat still on. Was that us? He was at the counter. He didn't turn around. No. Malachi? No, he said again, and then he did turn around. You want me to swear on something? I want you to tell me how Bishop knew before I did. Because that's his job. That was the whole answer. Not a lie, I don't believe to this day it was a lie. But it was an answer built like a wall, and I stood on my side of it for 6 weeks driving to a hospital in another man's car. I never found out. That's the part people want resolved, and I can't do it. No arrest was ever made. Tasha's mother stopped asking the detectives in November because the asking was eating her alive. Nostrand Avenue in 2009 did not require a reason, and there may not have been one. In September, I did not have a name for what else it could have been. By the middle of November, I had one, and it had a younger brother in my Wednesday seminar, and I have spent 16 years not letting myself finish that thought in a straight line. I have never once been able to say it had nothing to do with him out loud, without hearing how badly I wanted it to be true. She woke up on the last day of October, slowly over days, not the way it happens on television. First, she squeezed her mother's hand. Then she was awake 11 minutes and didn't know the year. Then she knew the year and asked for her phone. The first full sentence she said to me was a complaint about the pillows, and I laughed so hard a nurse came in. For about a week, I thought we were going to get everything back. The bullet had done something to the nerve on her left side. She learned to walk again on the 5th floor in a gait belt with a physical therapist named Dennis who played Hot 97 while she worked. She was ferocious about it. Cane by Christmas, no cane by spring. And she has a limp now that she says only shows up when she's tired, which is a lie, but it's hers to tell. The college processed it as a medical withdrawal. 2 lines on a form. She lost the semester, and losing the semester meant losing her place in the cohort. And losing her place in the cohort meant her clinical sequence started over from the beginning. That's the part nobody puts in a news item. 4 paragraphs in a paper, no arrests, and a 19-year-old's education pushed back 2 years by a car that did not stop. In December, 4 days after Camille's twins came, Tasha told me she was moving to Atlanta. Her aunt was there. Georgia would take her transfer credits. Cost of living, she said. Whether she said, I said all the right things for about 10 minutes. Then I said, is it me? And Tasha Reyes, who talked through movies, who got us thrown out of a diner, who made me swear on a sidewalk in August, sat on the edge of a hospital bed with her cane hooked over the rail and did me the honor of not softening it. It's not what you did, Naima. Then what? It's where you stand, she said. You didn't do a thing to me. You just stand real close to where it comes from, and I stood next to you and I got hit. That's all. That's not a crime. That's just weather. I'm sorry. I know you are. She reached over and put a hand on my stomach and left it a second. Don't be sorry at me. Be sorry somewhere it'll do something. She flew out on the 11th of January. By then her hospital wasn't the one I was going to anymore. By then I was taking a bus to Rikers Island. Chapter 10. 3 doors. My mother came to the apartment on Thanksgiving. It was the first time. She brought her own pans. Her own. On the bus. She walked through my rooms with her coat still on, the way she inspects a patient's house before agreeing to home care. She ran the taps. She looked at the oven coils. She pushed on the bay window frame with her thumb, found the place where the draft had been fixed, and decided not to say anything about it. For 4 hours, it was the best day of that entire year. She made her stuffing. She let me do the greens, even though I do them wrong. She put her hand on my stomach twice without asking, and both times I let her. She waited until the plates were in the sink. What does he do, Naima? Mommy, I'm asking you a plain question in your own kitchen. He has the laundromat on Cypress and an auto shop on Farragut. He owns the building the laundromat's in and leases the top 2 floors. That's what he has, my mother said. I asked what he does. I did not answer, and she nodded slowly once, like a woman confirming a lab result she had already read. You just gave me a list of buildings. Mommy! Baby, I've listened to people lie for a living for 26 years. Not bad people, scared people. And they all do it the same way. You ask them about a person, and they hand you a fact about a thing. She dried her hands. You didn't lie to me just now. That's what's frightening me. You've gotten so good at this, you didn't have to. I got loud. I want that on the record, because for months afterward, I told this story as though she had been the one who got loud. She wasn't. She stood at my sink with a dish towel while I raised my voice at a woman who had worked a double on Wednesday to be free on Thursday. She let me finish. Then she picked up her pans. If something happens to you at 3 a.m, she said, who do I call? I stood there. There was no number. There was a man who appeared, and a man named Bishop with a key, and a coffee tin above the stove, and nothing on this earth with both our names on it. That's what I thought, my mother said, and kissed the side of my head and left. The Monday after Thanksgiving, I came out to the visitor lot behind Hollis at 7:10 at night, and there was a piece of paper folded under my windshield wiper. I thought it was a parking notice. That is what I thought for about 4 seconds, and those were the last 4 seconds of a particular kind of life. It was a photocopy. A newspaper item 4 paragraphs from the 20th of December 2008, a man found in Brooklyn, no arrests. And in the white space underneath, in ballpoint, in handwriting that was careful and unhurried and almost pretty, you should tell somebody. I stood in an 11-space parking lot with one working light, 22 weeks pregnant, and understood that somebody who was not the police knew I had been in that car. I did not tell Malachi. I did not tell Ruiz Yang later when there was a Ruiz Yang. I did not tell Dr. Feld, or my mother, or Ellen Fahey, or the woman in the gray suit who would eventually ask me 100 questions in an office on J Street. I put it in the glove compartment of a silver car, and it stayed there for 11 months, and I threw it in a trash can on Flatbush Avenue the week after he was sentenced. I have thought about that piece of paper more than I have thought about almost anything else in my life, because he was right. That is the thing that has never stopped bothering me. Deshaun Ellery, whatever else he was correct. I should have told somebody. His cousin was dead, and I had been 40 feet away, and I should have told somebody, and it took a man leaving a threat on my windshield to say the truest sentence anybody said to me that entire year. 9 days later, they came through the door at 5:40 in the morning. The sound is not a knock. Everybody reaches for the same words, and the words are wrong. It isn't a bang. It's a concussion. You feel it in the floor before you understand it in your ears, and there's a splintering underneath that your body recognizes as something being destroyed before your brain catches up. He was already sitting up. Between the first sound and the second sound, that man was upright with both feet on the floor. Naima. Hands where they can see them. Don't get up fast. Don't reach for anything. Malachi? Don't reach for anything. Then the room filled with light and noise and men. I can't give you a clean account of the next 90 seconds because I did not experience them in order. Flashlights on rifles, shouting in overlapping layers, police warrant hands don't move. Somebody said the word pregnant very loudly, and somebody else repeated it. And after that, 2 hands went under my arms and took me out to the front room instead of putting me on the floor. Somebody made a decision about me in half a second in the dark. And I have thought about that a great deal since. They put him face down in a hallway I had mopped. They had a warrant. I asked to see it, and a detective handed it over without argument, and I stood in my coat in my own front room and read a piece of paper with my address printed on it and a judge's signature at the bottom. A warrant is not permission to do anything. It is permission to do the specific things printed on it, in the specific place printed on it. Ours said, currency records, communications, firearms. They took the bathroom door off its hinges with a drill. 11 minutes. The same door he had fixed the lock on in September. They took the coffee tin. $3,100 counted on my kitchen table by a man in gloves while I watched written on a receipt, and I signed the receipt because I was told where to sign. They walked him past me at 6 o'clock. Bare feet, they didn't let him put on shoes, and that is what broke something in me that morning. Not the handcuffs. The neighbors in their windows, the man from the roti shop standing in his own doorway with his hands at his sides. He turned his head at the door, not his body, just his head. "Not one word," he said, "to anybody. You hear me? Not one." A detective named Ochoa left his card on my kitchen table at 9 and told me pleasantly and accurately that I was not under arrest, that I did not have to answer anything, and that I could ask him to leave my house right now and he would go. "That's true today," he said. "Might not be the whole story later." They were gone by 10 past 10. Cushions opened, drawers stacked, mattress against the wall like a door. The ultrasound picture that had been on the refrigerator was face down on the counter because somebody had checked the back of it. I sat down on the floor of the front room in my coat. And then I did the thing my mother had asked me about 13 days earlier, standing in that same room with a dish towel in her hands. It was 5:40 in the morning, and I called my mother. She did not say one word about being right. Not that day, not that year, not ever. She said, "Don't touch anything, don't clean anything, I'm getting in the car." It was Deborah Ruiz Yang who told me the charge 2 days later, in an office on Court Street with a view of a parking structure. Murder in the 2nd degree. And a date, the 9th of December, 2008.